concerned for your health, but I think being cold is really good for you and keeps you fit and young. That's what we're hoping, because we're all freezing. So we were just reminiscing about Fully Charged Live last year in September, which can be cold and chilly and rainy, and it was beautiful, sunny, warm weather without a brutal easterly wind, which we've got now. So I'm really impressed that you're all sitting there. We're going to be expounding an enormous amount of hot air facts, which we hope will waft over you and warm you up. So let me introduce our panel. We do have one of our wonderful panel. We're still waiting for him to arrive. He will arrive, like a rock star he is, in a moment. But first of all, let me introduce Rachel Hayes from Regen, Associate Director of Regen. James Court, who's Chief Executive of the EVA England, Electric Vehicle Association of England. And then a change to the original lineup. Here he comes. Here is a rock god approaching the stage now. I will introduce you when you're here. Next to James is Roger Atkins from Electric Vehicles Outlook, which I managed to get wrong this morning when we did an interview. And finally, please welcome Quentin Wilson. Needs no introduction from Faircharge.
Great, thank you very much for starting you're a victim of your own success. Just weaving through the crowds of people, it's getting harder and harder.
It does take a bit of time, doesn't it? But we're here today to talk about our wonderful government. Is our government really walking the walk when it comes to the rollout of renewable technology? I just wanted to leave a gap there, for comedy's sake only. Because there is a lot happening. We were in fact, Roger and I did a news episode, we recorded a news episode this morning where we talked about Hornsey 2, which has just come online. Offshore wind, amazing, huge, I think over 600 wind turbines out at sea. The thing is that it's owned by a Danish company. A lot of British people working on that project and will benefit from electricity, but and it's supported by our government and indeed by our wonderful Queen, who benefits from the rental of her seabed, which we're all very grateful for. Thank you, Mark. But let me just start. Can I start with you, Rachel? Because there is a lot of talk about the price increases that we're all experiencing. How on earth do we get through this period where we're still very reliant on fossil fuels? We're still very reliant on fossil fuels being imported from some countries we'd rather not import them from, maybe. How are we going to move on? Is the government doing enough? Is it how bad? Just how bad?
Thanks, Robert. It's the whole saying that we need today.
Yes.
So yeah, there's a lot of ambition coming from government. We've got zero carbon electricity system by 2035. We've got 50 gigawatt target of offshore wind. We've got annual contracts of difference rounds with wind and solar. We're so committed to running a net zero power system or electricity system by 2025, and we've got 24 gigawatts of nuclear in by 2050. So I think we have seen, inspired by COP in the last 12 months, a lot of ambition. Unfortunately, most recently we've seen the energy security strategy, which I guess falls down squid in terms of our ambition, not really kind of signposting a real clear move away from fossil fuels, not identifying a kind of clear roadmap around for energy efficiency, nothing on onshore wind in England, and it's just such a missed opportunity, I think, for the energy security strategy. And looking back to your question there on vulnerable consumers, people being plunged into fuel poverty, I think that I heard yesterday 40% of Scotland will be in fuel poverty by the end of the year.
40%? That's pretty shocking.
Yeah, so I think there's a lot of ambition there, but I think the missed opportunity for the security strategy is, I guess, the most disappointing thing we've seen from government recently.
Yeah, I mean, so, James, I know that you were very involved in COP26. There were a lot of, I was up there for a couple of days, there was a lot of very impressive statements made, but I mean, is there the general feeling that those statements are being followed up with concrete action?
Well, it's difficult. Because I suppose before I worked at COP, I also worked for the Renewable Energy Association. So I've seen this for like 15 years. And you would say, on the one hand, we have 40% of our electricity is renewable. And that is from 0% in 10 years. And if you just said in 2008, when the Climate Change Act was passed, we'd be at 40%, I think a lot of people would think, that's really ambitious. I mean, the energy companies are saying it's not possible.
Yeah.
The system is going to collapse if you hit to 30%. The system has evolved, it's moved. So that's, 40% is not to be sneered at.
Yeah.
If you're offshore wind, you have very, very, very little bad things to say about what successive governments have done. On the other hand, if you're onshore wind, if you're solar, you would say that at key points in the last decade, the government have removed subsidies, they have put their thumb on the scale, and have admitted such that they were talking about technology neutral, behind the scenes, doing everything they can to push in favour of technology, which has been fantastic, but at the detriment for... So how many people here got their solar panels before 2013? Look at all of you. You can tell. You can see they're all wearing Rolexes. That's why they're put up there. So there was a Poe moment where it was fantastic, and then there's one you just about squeak. If you're trying to install solar in the last 3-4 years, you're kind of doing it because you're an evangelist. It doesn't really make the payback that you'd expect from things like a draft excluder. By the way, draft excluder, the best value for money thing you can buy. I'm sure we all will, because 40% of us are going to be struggling to pay our bills. So it's a mixed picture. What I would say when it came to COP was that as a civil servant coming in, number 10 were hugely supportive. Most of the cabinet and in the key positions were hugely supportive, and there was a real government effort, and I think we did lead the world in a lot of areas. So I was working in the transport area, I was working in the cabinet office, and we managed to get 35% of the world to sign up to a 2035 to 2040 ZEV phase out. That's huge, and we backed it up with our own domestic policy by 2030, 2035. So, on the one hand, on the other hand, there are so many things that if I was a Conservative minister right now, I'd be saying, we've done X, Y, and Z, and COP was a fantastic example. And, DfT are still living up to that. Let's hope the rest of the government continues, and that COP wasn't a good month in Glasgow.
So, Roger, I know that you had a mixed feelings about the current administration and previous administrations. You've had a lot of dealings with them in your various roles. I mean, what is your attitude at the moment? I mean, are they walking the walk?
No. Quite simply, and I think we need a fundamental shift in culture. We can't keep having the turnover of ministers that we had, where they learn their brief and then they bugger off and do another brief. So they never kind of follow through with things. From personal experience, a lovely little company called Modec back in the day, 2007, 8, 9, 10, was leading the world in electric vehicle technology for delivery vehicles. The support for the government at that time was zero. Partly perhaps because David Cameron opened the factory, and at that time he wasn't the Prime Minister, someone else was, so maybe that's why we didn't get the support. I don't want to be too churlish, because as our friends are saying, we have seen some great stuff, and I know, I'm sure Quentin's going to talk about, a fundamental part now of the future, which are gigafactories to build the electric vehicles, and look at the cost, the obscene cost of HS2. For 100 billion, you could build God knows how many gigafactories, God knows how many hospitals, a whole ton of other stuff. Yet consistent administrations have pushed that project through when, against all other logic, we simply shouldn't be doing it. It's utter bloody madness. So, compared and contrasted to certainly China, which has a big advantage in not being a democracy, so they can plan long-term stuff, because they're a bit, let me put it politely, command and control. Is that a nice way of putting it? Yeah, command and control. They can get, long-term projects delivered that way. Infrastructure is always long-term. So I think in parts it's good, but we need a cultural shift. We have to listen to engineers more. I'm not an engineer, but in my experience of working life, spending time with people at Ricardo and other companies, engineers know how to engineer the future. Politicians, generally speaking, don't have a bloody clue. So if we can get more engineers in and around the political sphere, and I know you champion a lot of this, we can move on. So that's a lot of words to say in answer to your question, no.
spoke yesterday at great length about all the things that we both stumbled through in life. But I think the two things that really blow me away: your involvement in British Volt, which is a brand new, huge company that's going to employ thousands of people, which is such a turnaround in this country to have a new manufacturing base. But also Faircharge, which I think is just such a really critical thing. I mean, can you just do a bit of explanation about Faircharge first?
Sure. I mean, the answer to the question, I'm with you, Roger, it is an emphatic no. But then we've had 30 years, 40, 50 years of successive governments who have not been interested in energy policy at all because we had North Sea oil and North Sea gas. But now, with everything thrown into relief with the Ukraine and energy security, they're now scratching their heads saying, oh dear, we made a mistake. So Faircharge is my new lobbying group, and do come and see us. We're over there on K1, and we're lobbying the government for regularisation of VAT on EV charging. You pay 20% on a public charger, 5% on home charging, which is nuts. Wider awareness of EVs, more investment in infrastructure, etc., etc. But you can lobby the government through us because we've got a Find Your MP mechanic on our website. So all of us in this room who understand the enormity of transitioning from fossil fuels to renewables can do their bit to pressure this government, because we haven't had renewables, we haven't had a sustainable energy policy because it hasn't been a vote winner. That's the problem. You can win votes by getting people from Birmingham to London in 15 minutes quicker than you would have before and spending however many billions of pounds. That wins you some votes, but talking about solar and onshore wind doesn't. And you get people like Alan Titchmarsh standing up and saying, we don't want any more onshore wind. We do, and we need it so badly because this is the cheapest and the lowest carbon and the most sustainable form of energy we have. And for a long time, we led the world in offshore wind. China has just overtaken us. But we have this fantastic resource called the North Sea and all that wind. So we've really got to build this up. And we've got to have solar mandated on all new houses. And we've got to have much more solar farms and onshore wind. And don't talk to me about blighting the countryside. They can be removed if necessary. It's not like we're paving huge bits of Gloucestershire with executive houses that can't be knocked down or changed. We need this energy strategy and we need renewables, otherwise energy as we know it will be unsustainable. So we've got to move from fossil fuels to renewable energy within the next 5 years. And to be fair to the government, in March the Business Secretary, Kwasi Kwarteng, made this really definitive statement that they are going to change policy because of Ukraine. And since 2010, our amount of renewable capacity has risen by 500%, but it's not enough, and the government is not doing enough. And when I won't mention this minister by name to save his blusses, but he did say that we don't want any more onshore wind. Now that is completely against the interests of all of us here and the country as a whole.
What do we need to do then? I mean, I personally, individually, as citizens of this country, but also as a nation, to decarbonise the electricity system, well, our energy system by 2035. I mean, what are the key? Can we do it? What are the key steps?
So we definitely can do it. It is possible, and I think that we have the technology, we know how to build it. It's just a case of having more of it. I think the complexities come and the challenges come when we think about how to balance the system. We need more flexible technologies like storage coming online. There's the demand side response and engaging us as consumers. So when you're plugging your EV and you have the fancy tech, that means that you charge up and you charge down as and when you need it. And I think that will all come, in time. But I think the biggest challenge, for me, is the heat decarbonisation. And just as all amounts of heat pump at home, it's been huge amounts of upheaval and disruption combined with some building work. And I think if I hadn't been passionate about doing it, I think that it would have been perhaps a bit more daunting. And I think that the Treasury, particularly in terms of government and thinking that through, they've been very reluctant to and unwilling to commit the necessary sums for that, for Boris's target of 600,000 heat pumps in 2028 per year. So I think that as consumers, I think we really need to consider our energy use and our relationship with energy. I don't think it's ever been more apparent for all of us. And I think for government, I'd like to see some more homes, some more kind of financial mechanisms for homeowners that aren't kind of value run green and grant schemes.
And can I just add today, Robert, there was news, wasn't there, that 97% of all areas in the UK breach at least one World Health Organization pollution guideline. So this is absolutely critical for us, for our children, and their children too. And it's a huge public health issue, so don't talk to me about the cost. When you think about it, there's 40,000 people that die every single year from respiratory diseases. Well, that's a huge cost to the society.
Yeah, well, here's the thing with cost. I mean, it was a terrible thing. So COVID comes out of the blue. Where the hell did all the money come from to deal with all of that? To pay people for,
Where did it go, Roger?
That's another one. But it seems bizarre to me that this pandemic arrived and we suddenly conjured up all this money, kind of. Yet there wasn't any money for all these other important and you could argue more significant and long-term things like climate change, like air quality, etc. So it almost seems like fashion dictates some of how policy works.
Votes, Roger, votes.
Yeah.
I think treating it like a climate emergency would be a really good step.
Yes, I think so.
So I mean, there's local elections next Thursday.
Yeah.
How many of you have spoken to your local councillor or your local MP? I've worked in a parliamentary office. You can get you can get
Oh yeah, two. Three.
There are other people. You can get as a parliamentary or parliamentary office. If you get 138 degrees emails, it's fine. They all go to one side. If you get a handwritten letter, an MP will usually have 10 or 20 handwritten letters. This is something I've got to concern myself with. So write to your MPs. The other great thing about our democracy is that once a month on a dank Thursday in a church hall, your local MP will be there. You would not believe if you have 3 people turning up and they all look normal and they say normal things, and I'm looking around and you all look normal and you would say normal things. If politicians think that this is a real issue, they'll act. And it doesn't take that many people in an area for them to think, oh God, I've had 3 people moan about a wind turbine, but actually I've had 15 people say that this is the most important thing and they will get a vote depending on what my policies and how I stand. Don't give them an easy ride.
And this is absolutely right, because I saved £120 billion in fuel duty by getting people to write to their MP, because you can fill an inbox and they get apoplectic with rage and ring you up, but it makes a difference. So, fair charge, we're on K1, we can make you a template where you can instantly send a message to your MP saying, do something about air quality, do something about renewables.
Do you get any commission on that 120 billion?
Sadly, no, not a penny. I did it completely for now.
That was a rude question. I just thought, oh,
I wish, Roger.
Good work,
I reckon you're in the red wall, because you are really key people. Anybody in the red wall here, you are now like the gold dust in Parliament. So if people think that red wall care about the climate, which they do, they're not all, there are stereotypes that new MPs have on what the red wall is. It's not. They do care about this stuff, and they will change their vote on it. It's not about it.
You can make a difference. That's the most important thing to take away from this today. You can make a difference.
I had great pleasure telling my North Devon MP that I loved her onshore wind farm locally, and she turned around and told me that we need more exploration in North Sea, and I was like, I don't think that's going to help us.
We need more, sorry.
Exploration in the North Sea.
Oh, yes, wonderful.
But by the way, Rob, I've just, having a quick look around the audience, I've spotted someone from the oil industry. J.R. Ewing is sat over there, look, honestly. He's obviously coming to find out what's going on, to work out whether, the game's up, run for it!
That's actually the chair of EVA.
Yes.
He's come undercover as an oil man.
Texas oil man. But James, one of the things I wanted to ask you is, but this is a frustration of mine because I'm seeing a lot of new build housing. Has there been a boom? I think there sort of has. But the amount of it that is built with a gas boiler, with fairly low insulation, with no solar panels on the roof, why isn't there? That's one thing we should all be writing angry letters to our MPs about. Why isn't that absolutely legislated? You cannot build that new house.
And I can tell you, this has looking around and there was I can name him, I don't care, Eric Pickles, and the housing lobby. There were net zero targets in 2015.
Yeah.
And the housing lobby said, if you want houses, Eric, we'll build them, but we can't have that and that. And he was the minister, and it hasn't been rolled back. We should be. One of the reasons why Norway was so ahead of this was because of their building standards and the way, I'm not going to get into three-phase electricity, but it makes stuff easier. Everything that we need, heat pumps, chargers, they built it by design. We could have been doing this for the last 7 years, and we're still not at that point where we do mandate solar panels, and not every year. And also, as a local councillor, going back to your local elections, we have made it so easy for local councils. So you have something called allowable solutions. So a developer says, oh, we'd love to make this net zero, but we can't, really tricky area, but we'll throw you £1 million. And councils are so skint, they'll turn a blind eye because they want the money. So they'll go, we agree, it would be very difficult for you to put solar panels on your roof.
Yeah.
Thank you for the £1 million.
Yeah.
The real problem for me at the moment is that the present incumbent of number 10 may not be there for much longer.
Fingers crossed.
Fingers
No.
crossed.
But you can see who's going to come next.
But if he does go, there are a group of MPs, backbench MPs, really right-wing conservative, called the Net Zero Scrutiny Group, and they want to roll back all these green targets and set us back a decade. Now this is a real and present danger, so you've got to just make your voices heard, otherwise slowly, imperceptibly, that will happen. And then that mandate for 2030 for no more combustion, brand new cars and vans will be rolled back to 2035, to 2040, to 2050, and then we will really be back in the dark ages. So this is something that I literally lie awake nights worrying about how we're going to make sure that these vested interests, these dark forces, don't unpick everything that we've been doing.
Rob, you know Dale Vince, don't you?
I do.
Is he going to stand for Parliament? He'd be a great Prime Minister.
Yeah.
He wouldn't take any shit, would he? Oh,
sorry. I knew he'd use a rude word somewhere. I really don't know about. I think the civil servants and the PR people managing Dale's premiership would be under some stress. He's occasionally. No, definitely not. Then they were all.
That's a great show. That could be wonderful.
No, you really don't want. Because I forget which country I was looking at. It would be appalling.
If I was going to say one thing, is that actually, in 15 years, I would say, Boris, whether he believes this or not, I don't really care that much. We are getting more access and more support from number 10, and there are some excellent people working in number 10 pushing this agenda. We're getting more from this number 10 than we've got on many other number 10s, and worry about who's coming next.
Who's coming next?
Sorry, Rachel, I know you want to say something. With Quinton's point about the vested interests, so taking over as CEO of the EDA, we are trying to be a strong voice against some of the motor industry who are trying to roll back the ZEV mandate. And they have lots of lobbyists.
And lots of money.
And my thing to you would be not only to talk to your local MPs, to obviously sign up to Fair Judge, but also EVA membership. We are going to try and be a counterweight to the motor industry that are trying to drag this back and give, hopefully a voice to drivers in government. That is my driving mission, is to try and be that counterweight.
I think, I echo your points, James, on number 10. I think they have been supportive. I think they have got the ambition, and the rumours are true in terms of the energy efficiency strategy that was due to be in the energy strategy, all got rolled back by Treasury, and I think that is the primary blocker at the moment.
Rob, I've sat here because I can see a different view. I haven't paid for the ticket. When the Genesis on? Because that is why I came actually, because I love Singing England by the Pound. It's my favourite album. Will they be on at all?
I thought we'd get through this whole talk without any reference. If those of you who look behind you, there is the Genesis stand. It's for cars. Genesis cars. It's not
Sorry. You can tell I'm the stand-in person for the bloke who didn't turn up, can't you?
I thought it was a high risk position. I want to know, because I'm sure you're all confident, if you got up and asked a question, you'd warm up with it. Has anyone in the audience got any questions for what I think is a truly remarkable and beautifully outspoken panel? So if you can get, there's a microphone right in the central aisle. Now here to your left, there at the front. Thank you. I love the way everyone's wrapped up.
It's very good. I had solar installed after the FIT tariff ended. And I had it installed because my house usage was so high, the maths made sense. But I do export a decent amount during the summer when I can't use all of it. I've got Zap, I've got a Zap charger, I've got LEDs, etc. But the export tariffs are so tiny that it's pointless. And is there going to be a push for government to force energy companies to, you're paying 35p to import to give us something reasonable for return for the export, okay? Without the FIT. Obviously, FIT is different, but these old people post-FIT.
I think we're seeing an increase in the smart export guarantee payment from suppliers. So Octopus, I think, have increased their tariff recently. I don't envisage seeing any more support from government.
I think we had to fight hard to get the smart energy export tariff. And it's smart energy export guarantee, and I rang the civil servant who came up with that name and said, you've called it SMEG, which is a reference back
I don't know why I thought of it.
He introduced the SMEG, yeah.
It's the SMEG. Sir, they've introduced the SMEG. Fantastic.
No, we had to fight hard after the feed-in tariff even to get that. I don't know if there were plans to extend it. It was a fight to get it.
No, I totally sympathise with you because I'm on the same thing. You just think, well, I try not to export everything. I try and make sure I use it all. But the bits that I do, it would be very nice to get something reasonable for it.
Exactly.
It's the same with electrons. It's as useful as the electrons or anywhere else. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. Do you want to? Oh, very good.
Sorry, just a follow-up to that one. I'm on the same thing. I'm going to ask you, Robert, because you're probably in the same position. I have an old 16-pound system, which is on FIT. I wasn't at the start of FIT that big way. I was getting about 14 bits. And subsequent to that, I've had a second system put in, which I've kept totally separate from the first one. Second SMEX meter, two inverters, yeah, kept them totally separate. Do you think I can get SMEG for the second one? Yeah, I've gone to SO Energy, they say, oh, you've only got one MPAN. And because you've only got one MPAN, you're going to have to give up the generation charge on your FIT. Well, really, I'm generating now twice as much energy and I'm feeding it into the grid. Why can't I just get paid for it, even at 5 pence a kilowatt when they're charging me 35 pence to consume it? I mean, I know that you've gone on
a similar position.
Yeah, it's probably a similar position. And the only way you've got around it is just by saying, I'm going to try and use it on it.
Yes, I'm afraid that is. I mean, I don't know the ins and outs of the legislation around it, but certainly it is a really complicated thing. Because I never had a FIT, but if you have a second installed, I'm exactly the same. It's on a different inverter. It's on, it's completely off the record.
We should push government on and say, well, there are people who have got two systems. They're separate systems. They've got their own generation meters, but they should be getting paid not only for both systems, but a reasonable amount for what they're putting back in.
Probably could have answered it 2 years ago. I can't remember. Sorry. I can try and get back to you.
This is really interesting, in fact, historic, because last year we're talking about electric cars.
Yeah.
Now people are talking about their microgrids and their solar. And I mean, this is a real step change, people. So it's great, and you are the driving force, the early adopters of this, and it's so wonderful to hear. With everything that's going on, Ukraine, all the bad news, all the negativity, here are a very large group of people who want to make a difference.
Yes, absolutely right.
And it's remarkable.
And it is also, just very briefly, because I wanted to make a comment, but the way to spread that, what you're doing, sir, and the way to spread that information and that knowledge is exactly by doing that. Even if you're down the post office moaning that you're not getting anything for yourself, people go, he's got 2 lots of solar panels. Well, in the village I live in, 28 houses, I used to be special. I was the special one. I was annoying Robert who had his silly electric cars. What an idiot. Oh God, look at him with his pocket electric cars, he's elitist. All that. There are now 9 electric cars in that village. Two other Tesla Model 3s and a Porsche Taycan, and I'm really bitter. The guy on the farm at the corner's got a Porsche Taycan. I won't speak to him now, I ignore him. But that has made a big difference. There's now 4 houses in the village that have put, a lot of old houses, they put solar in their gardens. it spreads. It's like moss or
You're still special, Robert.
No,
You're still
no,
special.